and Lama Losang, warmest welcome to each of you here as well as online. I hope those online can hear me. It is wonderful that we can be together today for the first opening, the soft opening, KTC Jacksonville Tibet Buddhist Meditation Center. We're very, very happy that Lama Losang can be with us today. He'll be giving a teaching on the life of the Buddha. As all of you probably already know, this is, of course, a special day in the history of KTC Jacksonville. With this soft opening, Jacksonville is now officially back. Now, that's not to say we haven't been here the whole time, because our dedicated crew has been working tirelessly to offer practices online during the pandemic. And special thanks goes out to Mike Becerra, who has been so instrumental in helping maintain the continuity of practice for all of us here at KTC Jacksonville. Thank you, Mike, for keeping the Dharma available online. It's great we can be back together face to face. It's been, it seems like such a long time since we've had the opportunity to do this. Today is also a special day because we're celebrating the 37th anniversary of the center here, which is a milestone.
Yeah.
It's been a while since this activity has started, and we're very grateful that things have come to this fruition at this time. It is amazing. So many people have been involved in the process of bringing Karma Text controlling Jacksonville forward over the years. It's just hundreds of people, Rinpoches, Lamas, Sangha, Board of Trustees at KTD, all have helped bring this to this moment, a moment which Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche many years ago had asked that we aspire to, that we have a permanent home, a home that we can call our own for the practice, for the study, contemplation of the teachings of the Buddha. So this has indeed happened. We extend deepest bow to His Holiness Virgin Chinle Dorje, the 17th Chalwa Karmapa, whose center is his. This is an expression of His Holiness's compassion. And his representative, Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, who for 35 years tirelessly came to all of the KTCs, not only here in Florida, but all over the United States, to offer Dharma and to make sure that the continuity of practice remained pure. We owe a great debt to our teacher, the Venerable Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche. And we bow to him with body, speech, and mind. There are so many people to thank for bringing us to this moment. So many teachers. In particular, I think immediately of our new abbot, Khenpo Urgyen, Khenpo Chenkyon, Lama Lodro, Lama Karma, Lama Kathy, and our own Lama Yeshe and Lama Losang, who were so instrumental in helping establish this site. To all the Lamas who have served the center through its history, we extend our great gratitude. To the Board of the Trustees of KTD, we extend our warmest thanks. And in particular, we thank the Sangha. For without Sangha, there can be no center. So much has been done on the part of the membership here throughout all of these years. So heartfelt thanks to each of you, and the Board of Directors of KTC Jacksonville, who have worked so tirelessly and certainly through an extremely difficult period. We're very, very fortunate that we have a resident monk with us. And while this is a period of great joy, of rejoicing, it is also a time of remembrance. And thinking of our own Anila, our resident nun, we send thoughts of love to her and to her family. Anila was at the center for many years, and a very devoted student of Kempo Rinpoche, and has passed away recently. And through the general support of the center members, the Sangha, great help is extended to her family, and her ashes have now been interred in Kermadin Retreat Center in Delhi, New York. So we all miss her greatly. So thank you is really, it's so easy to say, but it's said with great heartfelt meaning, and words alone cannot express the gratitude that we feel for the opportunity to be able to study and practice authentic Dharma, to be part of authentic lineage, to be able to support one another here in practice. So warmest thanks once again to everyone. It is my great pleasure to introduce the spiritual director for Karma Central in Jacksonville, Lama Losang. Lama Losang was the principal student of the Venerable Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche. He completed a 3-year retreat under his guidance and serves all the centers in the state of Florida, both here in Jacksonville as well as Gainesville, our Amelia K at KSG, and all students connected with the Karma Kagyu tradition here in the state of Florida, as well as offering teachings at other KTCs around the country. Lama Losang is a fully ordained monk with the Karma Kagyu lineage of Tibetan Buddhism. He holds a PhD in psychology and is a teacher and practitioner of Asian medicine. He's brought great benefit to many of the students with his medical help and practices. Today, once again, I want to say thank you, Lama Losang, and for today's teaching that we'll share on the life of the Buddha.
Okay, thank you for that introduction. So we are turning our mind to the Dharma, and anytime we hear a Dharma teaching, we want to cultivate the loving kindness and compassion, and remember bodhicitta, that we are doing this practice. We call ourselves Buddhists. That means that we are working for the well-being of all sentient beings. And so we begin by taking refuge and turning our mind to reach Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings, which is the meaning of bodhicitta. So we begin by taking the vow. Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the sublime Sangha. By the merit of my listening to the Dharma, may I reach Buddhahood to benefit beings. Sanjay Chudang Soki Choknam La Janju Madu Dakni Japsu Chi Dagi Chenem Jipe Sonam Ki Drola Penchir Sanjay Drew Parsho. Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the sublime Sangha. By the merit of my listening to the Dharma, may I reach Buddhahood to benefit beings. Alden Sawe Lama Rinpoche Daki Chipo Beta Chinchikla. Kaden Chimpo goes into Chinte. Kusum to Chidu Saludu So. So welcome and thank you for coming to this soft opening, as we say. But to get to this point, as Michael said, required some effort and some grace and some blessing. And we have been fortunate to receive all of that in the most abundant way. when we were told we had to leave the premises of the previous center. And you know the cost of things these days when it comes to real estate. Not an easy task to just find something large enough, suitable enough, parking, all those things. And all of the causes and conditions came together in the most harmonious way. I have to say, it was pretty impressive the way it happened. So we have the blessing of our teacher. We have to say that we've been under the guidance of Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche through all of this. I've been feeling his blessing, as I'm sure all of you have. So today we're going to, because we still are in Saga Dawa, which is the most precious time in the Buddhist calendar. It commemorates the birth of the Buddha, the realization or enlightenment of the Buddha, and the parinirvana of the Buddha is passing away. Of course, passing away is really not what it is. He did not pass away. He left this physical form, and but the teachings of the Buddha, loving kindness and compassion, and all of the teachings that have manifested through our lineage still remains. So what is going to be presented here is a exploration of meditation and a brief overview of the life of the Buddha. I think all of you are seasoned practitioners and know the life of the Buddha, but to consider it, contemplate it, and rejoice in it is really what this month is about. And the blessings that goes with it, it is said that when we turn our mind to the Dharma and practice, it goes from new moon to new moon. And I think the new moon is 29th of this month. So up till the 29th, we are in this wave of blessings. So it is said that your merit is increased 100,000 times during this period. So keep your thoughts pure, endeavor to cultivate virtue and avoid harm or wrongdoing, and tame your mind. So this is really the teachings of the Buddha. It can be summarized by those three aspirations. We practice and uphold this, cultivate excellent virtue and abundance, avoid harming or wrongdoing, and completely tame your mind. And this completely tame your mind, of course, is the essence of meditation, is the essence of our practice. And this is the teaching of the Buddha. And it may be simple to say, but may be hard to do. But the fact that you're here is an indication of your profound aspirations. So thank you. So this meditation, mindfulness, awakening aspect in all of the Buddhist teachings, it lays the groundwork for our realization and ultimate Buddhahood. And it is expressed in many different ways, 84,000 different ways, as it is said. But, you know, I teach medicine, as Michael said, and currently writing a book, in the process of doing that, the Golden 8-Petal Lotus, Way of Health and Harmony. And in all of those teachings, there are 8 petals, and it begins with meditation and mindfulness. In the classics of Asian medicine, this 8-petaled lotus is called the 8 branches, but in a dream I had, it was presented to me as an 8-petal lotus. And the first of these teachings have to do with meditation. We have to, and this was the training of a physician. in the ancient way. So it included meditation as the first. First, we have to tame our mind, and before we can be of benefit to any other sentient beings. And then the practice of qigong, or exercise, to move the qi and the blood, and to maintain our good health. And diet and nutrition are the third. The fourth is the movement of using massage or acupressure to enhance health and well-being, vitality. The fifth is a mo, or divination, I Ching, any aspect like that, so we can tap into that higher essence of our Buddha nature. And the sixth is feng shui, or astrology is also in this department. Although it's a lesser science, all of these things are done as a vehicle for benefiting beings, and it can be used as a skillful means to do so. The seventh is considered herbal medicine, and the last is medicine of acupuncture, moxibustion, gua, or other healing modalities. That is the grossest level. It begins with our mind. So, as expressed through this vehicle, our lifestyle is considered the most important in terms of our health and well-being. So consequently, much emphasis is placed on the importance of cultivating loving kindness and compassion. That was the essence of the Buddha's teaching. And how do we do that? We do that by taming our own mind. So we will begin by briefly talking about the Buddha, who, as you know, lived around 2,600 years ago. And there are many wonderful and scholarly books written on the life of the Buddha. And I recommend you to certainly acquaint yourself with this most remarkable man. And again, he said he was a man, just like we are human beings. He's not a god, and we don't look to anything outside of ourselves except our own Buddha nature, the wisdom that we naturally are born with and have within us, and have from beginningless time. And there's nothing we can do to tarnish it or make it better or worsen it. It is our essential nature. So if we read about the essence or the life of the Buddha, we see how he came. And his intention was to end suffering. So briefly, the Buddha was born, again, about 2,600 years ago, around 560 BCE, on a full moon day in May. So as I said, this was when we celebrated the Buddha's birth. This is Saga Dawa. He was born, his mother was Queen Mahamaya, and she was traveling from the palace to her home from Kapilavastu to Devadaha, which was the home of her birth, and to visit her parents, to give birth to her son. But she didn't make it to her home, as was the custom. But halfway between the two cities, in a beautiful Lumbini grove of flowering sal trees, she lifted her arm and out came the Buddha and walked. He was a pretty incredible child right from the get-go. Gave birth effortlessly and painlessly, as it is said, gave birth to her son. So he was now the prince of this small kingdom in Nepal called Kapilavastu, and his father, King Suddhodana. On the fifth day following the birth, his father, the king, gathered 8 wise men to help choose an appropriate name for the new prince. And the astrologers and priests and sages agreed on the name Siddhartha, which means one whose purpose is achieved. So they also predicted that he would become a powerful ruler, a universal monarch, or he will renounce the world and become a Buddha and deliver humanity from ignorance and suffering. And one of these wise men, Kandana, the wisest and youngest, after watching the prince, boldly said that, "O king, this prince will one day go in search of the truth and become a supremely enlightened Buddha." And then he began to cry. And this was a little disturbing to the king, and asked, "Why are you crying?" And he replied that he was crying because at the time of the Buddha's teaching, he would already have passed away, and he would not have the good fortune to hear the benefit of this teaching. These predictions very much influenced the king and his behavior towards his son, because he wanted an heir to take over the kingdom. So he was raised as a prince with all the benefits and privileges of his royal family. But as it turned out, on the 7th day, after Queen Mayamaya gave birth, she passed away. And young Siddhartha was then cared for and nursed by his mother's sister, Prajapati. He was raised in refinement, amid abundance and material luxury. He had the best education and became skilled in many branches of knowledge and arts of war. He was raised in the military sense. There are different castes, as you know, in India. There's the Brahmin caste, there's the warrior caste, and there's the kind of laboring force, and there's the untouchable kind of. But he was in this warrior class, being groomed to be a leader. And through a succession of experiences, he saw old age, sickness, and death, and realized the inevitability of the consequences of birth. He saw a mendicant monk also walking, which had a big impact on him. He thought that this would be the path that he should take. And at 29 years of age, he left his royal heritage and palace of his birth, his parents, renouncing the world, and became an ascetic wanderer who endured many hardships, which was the custom of the time. And after 6 years of wandering and finding teachers to study with and quickly surpassing their level, he found that asceticism was not helpful. The body needed nourishment to maintain strength for continuing on the path. And he parted ways with the 5 yogis he was traveling with and went forth alone to pursue his destiny. And at this juncture in his quest for truth, Siddhartha established what would be called the middle way. And this is, the Buddha explained his concept of the middle way as being beyond asceticism and beyond hedonism. After regaining his strength, he was offered yogurt or rice milk because he was on the verge of death. He could hardly bathe in the river because he was so weak. He was a young maiden gave him some food that brought him back to life, and he regained his strength, and he vowed to take his seat under the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya, India, and enter into various states of meditative absorption until he achieved his goal, the awakened state of Buddhahood. And at age 35, on a full moon night, he sat beneath the Bodhi tree in deep meditation, profoundly determined to sit until he found the truth or died trying. He was attacked and wooed by visions to distract him, Mara, as it is said. Yet he remained steady in his meditative state. He had awakened to the most supreme wisdom and understood things as they truly are. He became the Buddha, the awakened one. So what the Buddha went through, we will at one level or another go through ourselves. And that attack of Mara, our mind going through all of its craving, is something that we deal with all the time. Yes. And so we have the good fortune, though, to, because of our merit, have gained access to the teachings of the Buddha through our wonderful teachers. And the merit that we recognize it to be of value. I think most of you, or if not all of you, have taken refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, the Sangha, and have committed yourself to that path. So for 49 days after his enlightenment, the Buddha wished to begin teaching. 49 days after, he didn't know how he was really going to communicate this to people, but he was asked by the gods, Brahma, to please teach, because there are those who can understand it, and to please turn the wheel of Dharma. So he journeyed to Deer Park in Sarnath near Varanasi in northern India. And through his clairvoyance, he knew that those 5 yogis that he had traveled with were there. And he could begin his teachings with those 5 seekers who he had previously traveled with. And when he arrived, they didn't immediately accept him because he had left them to go his own way. And they thought he was soft, and he began eating and didn't practice his asceticism anymore. And it was here that he began his teaching, called the first turning of the wheel of Dharma. And this would be the first of 3 teachings that he would show the stages of the path leading to full awakening of the Buddha. These also describe the different aspects of training known as the 3 yanas, or the 3 vehicles. This facility, this place, is called Jacksonville Karma Thegsum Choling, and it means the place where the 3 yanas are taught. And they all are in sequence to help open us up and create the auspicious circumstances for us to engage in the highest teaching based on our own level of understanding. So we will discuss these 3 turnings of the wheel. So the Buddha now began his 45 years of teaching. This was the first of the 3 turnings. He instructed them in what is called the 4 Noble Truths, which is the foundation of the Buddhist teaching. He also taught Abhidharma, Buddhist psychology, and selflessness of the individual. He taught the Vinaya, and that is the proper conduct. He taught about karma and aspects of establishing a meditative mind. This was the first teaching, and we will be talking more about this as we continue. So these teachings would come to be known as the foundation vehicle, the Hinayana or the Shravakayana. So here the emphasis is on the personal liberation, and the intention is to escape samsaric world of suffering and attain the bliss of nirvana for oneself. So when the students heard this teaching, they understood and became his disciples. And they traveled together as the Buddha continued to teach the Dharma and taught a progression of teachings according to the students' needs and capabilities and understandings. As it is said, he taught 84,000 different ways to appeal to all those different mind streams. The second turning of the wheel represents the Mahayana view of the Bodhisattva. Sometimes this is called Bodhisattva Yana. Yana means vehicle, so it's what takes us to the other side. So it is said that this took place at Vulture Peak in Rajagriha, and the emphasis here was on emptiness, and which is presented in the Prajnaparamita Sutras, and also taught on Buddha nature and compassion. This was the second turning of the wheel. So again, 45 years following this awakening, the Buddha continued to teach with great skill and compassion, and in a way that would clarify and clearly point out the path to liberation and true freedom. Often people think that Buddhism is pessimistic or always talking about suffering, but the Buddha was here to end our suffering. He said to know suffering. And we'll talk about that more when we talk about the Four Noble Truths. So the Buddha left this earthly existence, achieving enlightenment at age 80 in Kushinagar, India. And although the Buddha's Shakyamuni physical form has left, as we said, left the world, his kindness, compassion for all sentient beings remains. And the Buddha recognized was not the first to become Buddha. There have been many Buddhas, there'll be many more Buddhas to come. This is considered a very auspicious eon. It's a time of 1,000, and it's said 1,002 Buddhas in this precious eon, of which Shakyamuni Buddha was the fourth. So Buddha recognized that he was not the first, and all beings have this innate wisdom, this Buddha nature and compassion. And for that, that's who we truly are. And we are obscured because of our clinging, because of our obscurations. The only difference between us and the Buddha is that we have not awakened to our Buddha nature. It is obscured, like the sun behind the clouds. It's still there, but it can't be seen sometimes because of those obscurations. But it is immaculate and stainless, and there is nothing we can do to tarnish it or improve it, as I mentioned. We will awaken to our Buddha nature, waking from our dreamlike state into clear awareness of the natural mind. This is what the Buddha taught. So what follows is a brief description, again, of the turnings of the wheel of Dharma. The third wheel is the second half of the Mahayana teachings. I mentioned the second turning of the wheel in Vulture Peak at Rajagriha. But the third turning of the wheel is really an extension of the Mahayana teachings that took place in several places, beginning in Vaisali. At this teaching, he goes on to describe emptiness and presents the view of Tathagata Garbha, or Buddha nature. And the Buddha taught the luminous nature of emptiness and the potential for Buddhahood present and unchanging in all of us. So those are the three turnings of the wheel, and we'll go into those three turnings a little bit more in detail now. Any particular questions? Anything? Yes.
The tradition of asking the first question. The woman who offered him yogurt, or did they know what happened to her? Was she at the teachings? Or?
Actually, if you go to Bodh Gaya, there is the stupa there, and I hope you all have the opportunity to go there. Across the river, there is a recognition of her and a little shrine that is there. Because she would have died, other words. We're very grateful to her, but she gets very little recognition. In fact, I didn't have her name down here, and I need to put that in my notes so we can give her credit where credit is due. But she was there to save the Buddha's life and to have him continue on his mission. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Do you think she a human?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know if she might have been a bodhisattva that was.
Well, she could have very well been that,
Yeah.
but human too.
I don't know if it was real.
Those are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
But she was going to make an offering to at a tree for a particular Buddha or a spirit, and she saw the Buddha to be, and was taken by him and offered it to him instead.
Yeah.
Sujata.
Oh, I've had a student's name.
Sujata. Does it say anything else about Sujata there?
Yeah.
Milkmaid.
Yes.
Also, it has some more of a, with aspirations on the egg. Also, a farmer's wife who is said to have fed the Buddha a bowl of milk rice pudding, ending his 6 years of asceticism. Such was his emaciated appearance that she wrongly believed him to be a tree spirit that had granted her wish to have a child. The gift provided him enough strength to cultivate the middle path, to develop jhana, to attain the bodhi, and therefore be known as the Buddha.
Yes, very good. Thank you for that addition. Isn't it wonderful? Yes, that's good. Yeah, we owe her a debt of thanks. All right, so talking about the first turning of the wheel then, when the Buddha became enlightened, the first teaching of the Buddha to his 5 students was the Four Noble Truths. The truth of suffering, the first, the truth of the origin of suffering, the third, the cessation of suffering, and the fourth, the path that leads to the cessation of suffering. This is the essence of the Buddha's teaching, and in all of his teachings reinforced this and clarified it. But if we understand these Four Noble Truths, we understand the teachings of the Buddha. If we examine these four Noble Truths, we will find that the first Noble Truth, suffering, is the result caused by the second Noble Truth, the origin of suffering. And the third Noble Truth, the cessation of suffering, is seen as the result of the fourth Noble Truth, the path that leads to the cessation of suffering. Simply put, we see the Four Noble Truths are causes and results. The first 2 truths are the causes that result in suffering, and the second 2 truths are the causes that result in nirvana, enlightenment, freedom from suffering. So let's explore this a little further. The truth of suffering. The teaching contained in the Four Noble Truths is how the middle way view, previously mentioned, is to be cultivated and practiced. So the Buddha said we must know suffering. What does that mean? Because everything that exists or that can be experienced on the relative level of reality is made of composite elements, causes and conditions, and is impermanent. Its composition will eventually break down. The first step is to bring this realization onto the path of our awakening mind, to recognize and acknowledge it. For most of us, it is natural to immediately think suffering is to be avoided, prevented, or ignored. But this is not what the Buddha taught. He said suffering is to be known. This is to show us by knowing suffering, we will come to understand its cause. And what is its cause? The second Noble Truth, the truth of the cause of suffering. The second noble truth is the cause of the origin of suffering. Once we realize that suffering or dissatisfaction exists, and we really have to look at this, dukkha is the Pali word, and it doesn't really mean suffering in the way we usually think of it. You know, it is more like dissatisfaction, that things just don't go quite the way we wanted. And if we only had this, then we'd be happy. Or if we had this, then, you know, things aren't quite right now. We're missing something. There's always something that's not quite right. And we might not call that suffering, but this is what dukkha means. It's a different feeling. So when people say, oh, you guys just talk about suffering, I don't suffer, people would think. Buddha said no suffering. So what does that mean? The Buddha taught that our suffering originates from our false belief in a truly existent permanent self, for one thing. It is from this fixation that arises what are called the three poisons of attachment, aggression, and ignorance. From these three poisons come further negative emotions and all aspects of suffering. When we look deeper into our behavior in body, speech, and mind, we realize that the main source of suffering that afflicts us is our own mind and our attitude. The Buddha said that if we want to overcome our experience of suffering, we will have to investigate and learn how to uproot the endless forms of excessive desire, craving, grasping, clinging, and attachment. And why should we uproot these tendencies? And the Buddha taught that suffering is connected with our actions. In Buddhist terminology, when we speak about an action, we are also speaking about the karmic consequences of the action. We are constantly accumulating three different categories or types of karma, depending on the motivation and intention of our action, either negative, positive, or neutral. Whatever thoughts or actions we engage in will leave its karmic residue in our mind that is either positive, negative, or neutral. For example, a thought such as hatred has tremendous energy and strength, and it will leave its karmic seed in the mind stream that will manifest as hatred again when the causes and conditions arise. This is as certain as when you plant an acorn, it will grow into an oak tree. We have the seeds of that further action in our alaya consciousness. All those things are stored. So about the truth of the cessation of suffering, the third noble truth. The third noble truth is the goal and is the reason the Buddha came to teach. He said he was here to end suffering. If the Buddha stopped with the first two truths, that would be unfortunate indeed, that there is suffering, and that's it. But the Buddha did not stop there. We first looked at how, given our human conditions, suffering and dissatisfaction are ubiquitous in our lives. And then we looked at the cause of suffering arising from the three poisons, karmic causes and conditions, and our false belief in this truly existent self, permanent self. Now the Buddha taught in the third noble truth, the truth of the cessation of suffering. The Buddha taught that suffering pervades our experience in the samsaric existence. Because of our ignorance and misapprehension of the nature of reality, we go around and round, life after life, old age, sickness, death, and rebirth, based on causes and conditions from all of our the past lives, without beginning or end. There is no first cause in Buddhism. We will continue to reincarnate life after life until our karmic seeds are exhausted. And Buddhahood is finally achieved when that happens. Yes.
This may seem like a off-base question, with our ignorance of what we know as a reality. Do you think paranormality has a lot to do with that?
What is your thinking about paranormality? I mean, this is like a dream. You know, we have imagined ourselves in a particular situation, and we have manifested this life based on what the Buddha said was our craving. So as we abandon that, we see the truth. He was here to bring the truth. Paranormal is another aspect of relative reality. What we see. We have two realities. We have relative reality and we have ultimate reality. Truly, there is only one reality, and that is ultimate reality. But inside of that, because of our delusions, we all perceive the world in a particular kind of way, kind of the same, but no one sees this room in the same way based on where you are in the room, based on what you had for breakfast, a lot of things, how you slept last night, are you awake? That would be a very small, I wouldn't say it would be based on any kind of paranormality. It is based on ultimate reality and seeing the truth. And that is what the Buddha tried to open our eyes to the truth so that we are not blinded by our cravings and our constant self-aggrandizement. We have to see the impermanence of all things.
So basically, of what was actually our reality versus, I guess, what we crave. You have to have one to have the other.
Well, we are in these bodies, and there's lots of ways that we are seeing the world. And as we reduce our craving and are not pushed and pulled by our desires, and that's what meditation is for, you know, the Buddha said we're on fire with our craving. You know, we have to have a little cool, calm, quiet mind without the constant striving and constant craving. Again, we're using those words to identify this aspect of what's creating our suffering. And that is what is creating our suffering, our misapprehension of who we are and how the world is. We misapprehend it, thinking it to be permanent or to think that it has lasting value. Inherently, it is empty. And we will get to that point, as the Buddha taught. It was one of his later things because people really weren't quite ready to understand emptiness, as he taught it in the Prajnaparamita Sutras.
It seems like that a lot of people don't get the depth of emptiness even today.
Very true. The world would be very different if they did.
Because I was always brought up in a society where you have to strive to get this, to get that, and to always to gain.
You're always striving to get. You're absolutely right.
Higher status.
Yeah.
But the thing about that is when you go for another higher status, then you have to achieve another higher status because the status symbols.
Do you see how it's never ending?
Yes.
Yes, that's the illusion. That's the suffering. That causes the pain. Rarely do we see things as they are. We see them based on causes and conditions. And we all have different causes. No one in this room is the same. We all are very individual and unique individuals. There's never been anyone like you. There never will be anyone like you again, because the causes and conditions, your experience since beginningless time, stored in your Alaya consciousness, that perception persists until we've extinguished all of that craving, all of that. So yes, you're absolutely right. That's what the Buddha said. There's always more. You're always feeling that you don't have enough. You're not good enough. I need more. So what does this mean? What did the Buddha teach to achieve the goal of liberation? The method for progressing along the path of enlightenment is known as the Noble Eightfold Path. And it consists of training in 3 areas of morality, meditation, and wisdom. Morality means cultivating virtue through discipline to protect oneself from wrongdoing and accumulating negative karma that leads to suffering. So the training in meditation or samadhi is through the cultivation of tranquility and penetrating insight through meditative stability into the nature of the mind. So we talk about shamatha to begin to tame the mind, and vipassana, insight meditation. Once we've trained the mind to have some stability, then we can penetrate the nature of reality. So here we define wisdom as the recognition of selflessness. And individually, these 8 branches are trainings. We say the Noble Eightfold Path. These are trainings in right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. And we'll go over those in greater detail in a moment. But that is the Noble Eightfold Path. And this is called the path of individual liberation. Again, this is part of the foundation vehicle of the Hinayana and the path of the Arhats. But it is fundamental to the Mahayana and to the Vajrayana. We have to train in this discipline. But there's more to come. So briefly, these 8 are, right view is the correct understanding of the Buddha's teaching. And that is first, because that is the most essential. We have to have the right view to see things properly and not fall into the extremes of eternalism or nihilism. So the Buddha said, knowing that everything arises due to causes and conditions enables us not to fall into these 2 extremes. Right thought means seeing how our thoughts and emotions are linked with our behavior. The Buddha said, as you think, you become. Indulging in negative thoughts leads to negative emotions and actions in body, speech, and mind. On the other hand, thinking in a positive way also has a positive effect on our emotions. We become more loving, more caring, more compassionate to ourselves, with ourselves and with others. So it begins with the mind. But how our mind functions, again, is based on certain causes and conditions that we've cultivated over time. Right speech means becoming aware of our speech. We often indulge in unskillful forms of speech. Lying, gossiping, we love to gossip. Harsh words, divisive speech. This has a direct influence on our temperament and demeanor, and influences our behavior, and can influence the behavior of other people if we're gossiping and setting the design and speaking unskillfully about others or situations. So right speech, we consider that. Right action is being cognizant of the effects of our behavior on others. It can be either harmful or beneficial. And the Buddha advised we cultivate mindfulness in all of our activities. It can be as simple as doing good deeds. It can be just wishing well for others. It's as simple as the golden rule, doing unto others as you would have them do unto you. It's a pretty simple process. Again, easy to say, not so easy to do because of our own craving, because of our attachments. We want things that we want, and we don't want anybody to get in our way. Right livelihood is concerned with our capacity to earn a living without causing harm to ourselves or others. We do not wish to cause death or harm or cruelty or physical or mental pain to any living being as a consequence of how we are living our life. So nor would we invest our resources, in companies or promote those that don't foster life. Right effort is essential to accomplish anything in life. So certainly is true on the path to total freedom. If we're going to have total freedom from suffering and liberation, we must make the effort through meditation to uproot the unwholesome thoughts and emotions as they arise. And we will ultimately stop them, or once we see them, we can make a choice to pursue it or not. And we also make an effort to cultivate wholesome thoughts and emotions that naturally arise as the mind becomes more tranquil and at ease. Right, mindfulness. We hear a lot about mindfulness, and this again is an essential quality in increasing awareness and attention to our thoughts and emotions, feelings, speech, and behavior. We become more conscious of our experience and have the capacity to make choices as how we want to respond to any situation. Our response to situation doesn't need to be our habitual knee-jerk response to situations, but a thoughtful, measured response to the current situation. We are no longer reactive, and we can become truly responsible for our behavior. And right concentration gives us the capacity to progress in our meditation practice. The mind becomes focused, stable, workable. We become less distracted and able to maintain our attention and awareness for extended periods of time. It is through meditation that we attain true wisdom. This is the fruition of the teaching of the Buddha. So all of our meditation practice is a gradual training on the path. First with shamatha, tranquility meditation, to make the mind workable, to quiet it down. Then we can see the light of our clear mind. The essence of our mind is just clear awareness, but it is cloudy. We often say the mind is like the sky, clear, spacious, vast. But sometimes there's a lot of clouds in that spacious sky that really obscure our seeing the truth of our reality. But as we progress along the path, we begin to embody the aspects of what the Buddha talked about and the virtuous aspects that we want to cultivate, the mind of enlightenment, as we enter the Bodhisattva path, the Mahayana path. So the second turning of the wheel. Any question about anything here? Okay. So the first turning of the wheel, the Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths. In the second turning of the wheel, the Buddha turned the wheel of Dharma for the second time in Vulture Peak Mountain. Mike, are you keeping up? Do we have questions on Zoom?
We haven't had any questions yet, but I did. If anybody wants to put a question in the chat, they can.
Yes, please do. All right. So at that time, he taught the perfection of wisdom, prajnaparamita, to an assembly of bodhisattvas, monks, and a host of many other beings, seen and unseen. He taught the complete teachings on emptiness. He said, relatively speaking, things do appear. However, they ultimately have no essential nature, no lasting and inherent existence on the level of ultimate reality. We have just spoken of relative and ultimate reality. We should explain what is called the two truths, relative and ultimate. So the Buddhist teachings on relative and absolute truth are found in the second and third turnings of the wheel. In order to understand emptiness, we must distinguish between relative and absolute truth. Relative truth is seen as our conventional reality, something which we all agree to. It includes dualistic phenomena, including ourselves, other beings, material objects, thoughts, emotions, concepts that we make up our material world. And the relative world is perfect in itself. The problem is our misapprehension and our misunderstanding of its nature. Absolute truth is the reality beyond dualism, beyond dualistic thinking, the labels and concepts. It is also the true nature of relative phenomenon. In Mahayana, it is called emptiness or voidness or shunyata. So when subjected to analysis, relative phenomena disappear. And all you find is absolute truth, emptiness. And this is true in Western science as well. More and more, we see the truth of the emptiness of things. And this understanding of this perfection, this is the perfection of wisdom. This was taught by the Buddha in the Prajnaparamita Sutras, such as the Heart Sutra, which I think you are familiar with. And this is recited and chanted by monks and lay Buddhists around the world. It is from this sutra that we find the often quoted saying, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. Emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. It is this realization that leads to liberation and Buddhahood. This wisdom is known as the mother of all the Four Noble Beings, the Sravaka Arhats, the Pratyeka Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, on any level of the path, and all the Buddhas have to understand this emptiness. And from the Mahayana perspective, the Buddha's second turning of the wheel is seen as the ultimate and definitive teaching. And there is one more thing that the Buddha taught in this cycle of teaching, and that is a very important one that I always emphasize. And it, in addition to the teachings on emptiness, the Buddha taught on bodhicitta, which is usually translated as the mind of enlightenment or the awakened heart. This is the heartfelt wish that all beings, not just oneself, may attain the state of perfect enlightenment. The bodhisattvas pledge themselves by taking a vow to commit to the work diligently to lead all beings to that enlightened state. And this commitment to working for the welfare of suffering beings until enlightenment is reached is the hallmark of the Mahayana path. And when we realize selflessness and combine this with loving kindness and compassion, it becomes the perfect Mahayana expression of bodhicitta. So we'll return to this a little later in the exploration of Tonglen meditation if we have time. We'll do some Tonglen. Now we turn to the third and last turning of the wheel. The third turning of the wheel of Dharma, of Buddha nature. In the third turning of the wheel of Dharma, to his retinue of bodhisattvas, monks, and host of other beings, the Buddha went further into the nature of mind. This teaching differs from the sutric approach and experience. Both of these approaches seek to achieve the same state of realization. However, they do so by different means. The third teaching is referred to by various names, such as Vajrayana, Tantrayana, Mantrayana. It includes the visualization of deities and pure realms, and recitation of sacred sounds called mantras, He taught that the mind's nature is not mere nothingness, a state of non-existence, but a luminous awareness beyond conceptual fabrication. It is the union of emptiness and clarity endowed with immeasurable qualities. The Buddha went on to clarify the nature of the mind by introducing Tathagata Garbha, also called Buddha nature. The Buddha declared that our fundamental nature has been primordially and utterly pure from the beginning. It has never changed from beginningless time. The essence is inconceivably profound, vast, and deathless. However, the Buddha taught that this potential seed of enlightenment, our Buddha nature, is hidden by temporary obscurations. Again, in the same way that we've used the analogy of the sun may be temporarily obscured and concealed by clouds in the sky. This prevents us from directly apprehending it. By practicing what the Buddha taught, we can remove the adventitious obscurations and directly apprehend the open, brilliant aspect of our own mind. Fortunately, our Buddha nature itself cannot be diminished by any adventitious temporary phenomenon, just like the sun, using the analogy again, cannot be diminished by any adventitious temporary phenomena. So that completes the brief review of the Buddhist teaching on the three yanas and the three turnings of the wheel of Dharma. And these trainings and methods play a vital role in the fundamental teachings of the Buddha, which we mentioned right from the beginning, to cultivate virtue, to avoid wrongdoing, and to tame our mind. This is the teaching of the Buddha. The Buddha only taught one Dharma that people heard in different ways depending on their aptitude. These teachings have been heard and repeated for many hundreds of years. There have been many different understandings and many different schools that have developed since the Buddha began teaching. The Hinayana is the foundation for the Mahayana. The Mahayana and the Hinayana support the Vajrayana, and it is indispensable to it. In terms of our practice, it is essential that we begin with right view. Without this right view, we become confused. The teachings the Buddha called the Dharma serves as a map, and our teachers serve as guides on our journey. And we need a guide who can show us the path clearly to prevent us from taking wrong turns and dead ends. So we are very fortunate to have these teachings available to us and have teachers who can guide us on the path to Buddhahood. Without discovering and following the correct path, we will not meet the conditions necessary for our success. And by following the path, we can realize the nature of our own mind in order to free ourselves from samsara. We actually have to take the first step on that path and continue with joyful perseverance to the completion of the journey. There are only two problems with attaining Buddhahood. One is not starting, not taking the first step, and the second is not going the distance to complete the process. But if we do that, our success is guaranteed. That's what the Buddha taught. And many have shown the way and have proved how this path works. Khepa Rinpoche always stressed the importance of the teacher-student relationship. He said Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the past began their journey the same as we are. They entered the path as ordinary beings, just like us. It was only through proper guidance that they immersed themselves and integrated the teachings into their daily lives and achieved enlightenment. The difference between enlightened beings and sentient beings is not what is seen. Enlightened beings see things too, and it is in the way they are seen. From the perspective of the enlightened mind, everything is an expression of our Buddha nature. It is insubstantial and empty of any inherent existence. This experience of direct seeing the nature of reality is the essence of enlightenment. The direct experience is the essence of enlightenment. It is also the basis for the cultivation of bodhicitta, the motivation to benefit all sentient beings. A realized being sees those who have not recognized this truth will cling and hold to dualistic concepts with fixed ideas. And this misapprehension and wrong view will lead to further suffering for them. The bodhisattva, through the force of their strong motivation, seeks the happiness of all suffering beings by removing the source of their self-imposed suffering, ego clinging. And bodhicitta, generated by the bodhisattvas, is directed equally to all beings. The main point is that someone who understands this acts with naturally arising compassion for all beings wandering in samsara. This is the profound teaching of the Kagyu lineage. It is the path of unbroken instruction, the same path the great masters of the past followed to attain liberation. And we'll take a look now at our lineage, the Tibetan Buddhism and our Mahamudra lineage. Are there any particular questions before we go on? Yes.
This goes to the first training of the wheel, I believe. The great speech.
Yes.
And so afraid to ask.
Yes.
And that's our, I don't know if it's, you can use it skillfully or there are times you shouldn't use it or.
I don't think there's a hard and fast rule. It has to do with your intention, as with everything. If your intention is to diminish or ridicule or in that way, then that's not skillful speech. If you can, sarcasm can be used. I've seen the Karmapa use sarcasm, but it's done in a way that is makes a point. Any other questions?
Well, I've seen the Pali where dukkha defined as to spin around. I mean, it was a kind of a broader, expanded, which suggests, of course, confusion and our misapprehension of the ultimate nature, what we are in essence, which is Buddha. So the Buddha, as I understand it, in my very limited way, is like the physician, and his teachings are like the medicine.
Correct.
That we practice. We will avoid this spinning confusion and see things as they are. Is that correct view?
Yeah, I don't know that dukkha, you may be confusing dukkha with samsara. Samsara means going around. Spin. Yeah. But the dukkha is just that dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
I saw a definition of dukkha is to thirst.
Thirst, yeah.
To thirst for things.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's different than, well, I mean, I guess it's just how you learn the word, like desire versus dukkha. I now sort of see as if I had that one more thing, things would work out better.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean like I really desire that. It's just that I desire the not the thing, but the outcome. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So it's like that.
Okay.
That's
So
dukkha.
there's two things, like the thing and the actual material thing, and then the actual, the thought about it. You know. But
Yeah.
I mean, you also have to, it's also not horrible. I guess there's the middle way of it, like it in the office, you will need a filing or, a filing cabinet eventually in the right place.
Yeah, there's things you need to support the center. But again, we begin with right view.
Okay.
drug addicts don't crave the drugs, they crave the effect of the drug.
They will, yes. We all want to be happy and we don't want to suffer. That's true for all sentient beings, from the smallest to the largest. And we think if we just had this one more thing, then I'd really be happy. But that's the essence of samsara. It will never be fulfilling. Never. By definition, it's samsara. Unless you transcend that.
Lama, how do we embrace suffering and not encourage the generation of more of our own suffering? How do we do the two things? So we're looking to end suffering, but also embrace the understanding of it. Like, how is that? How do we approach that without leading into more suffering?
Because again, it's having the correct view. You know that there's going to be suffering. You know there's no way out of suffering. And once you know that, for example, pain. Pain can be a physical reality. Suffering is a mental one. We don't have to suffer, even with pain, but we compound it by our, oh, why does this always happen to me? This is terrible. I don't want this. So that is mind suffering. The pain is the least of it. Then we just really pour it on, you know, that is. So we have to go back to having the right view. We know that people are going to suffer. We know that we're going to suffer. That is the nature of our samsaric world. But the Buddha also taught that that suffering can be eliminated. There's still a grasping that we don't want to feel this suffering. And it's like me going in, telling you, go in the corner and don't think of pink elephants, right? What's going to happen? Pink elephants everywhere. If you are grasping onto that suffering, what are you going to see? Suffering. If you take that to be real, if you see it as dreamlike expression, it's just what it is. The suffering's optional. Yes.
I do suffer from mental illness. And
We all do. Until we're Buddhists,
Yes,
we all
yes.
do. You're not peculiar in that way.
No, but you know, there's actual disease of the brain that are hard to understand because we don't understand the chemical processes of the brain themselves, which help with thought. I don't think they cause thought, but
You have to know you're not that.
yeah.
That's not that. I'm not that thought. I'm not that brain. And if you're going through some kind of hormone storm, or you're having a seizure, or you're having some kinds of things, there's nothing much you can do about that. But that's why we want to practice meditation.
I wanted to mention it because some illnesses are seen as like, oh, you don't have that. Just pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And it's just like, well, I don't have boots or straps. Because that's part of the disease. And I sort of feel like there might be a step where you validate that you have this disease and that it's hard, but that's okay. And I was wondering if it's okay to actually validate the illness, just like someone would say, yeah, I validate the fact in the relative world that my leg is broken and it's not the best idea to
But the more you attach yourself to any of those definitions and concretize it, then you become that, if it's dark outside, it's dark outside. You're wanting it to be light or pretending it's not isn't going to change that. So yes, you do have a disease that's been given this name. It's neither good nor bad that you, but if you identify with it in a particular kind of way, that this is who I am, then you are not that.
I think I've done okay. There are a lot of people who say that they have depression or they have. It's easy to say I am bipolar, and you have to make that distinction. It's like no, you have bipolar.
You have some symptoms that
You
are
have
akin
some
to that.
symptoms,
Yeah,
right. But you're not.
it's not
you're
who
not
you are.
Are
That is
thing.
not who you are.
You have a broken leg.
And people do identify with their symptoms all the time, and that's who they are, and that's how they relate to the world, as that person with that diagnosis and with that symptom situation. But yeah.
Okay. Sometimes I feel like it's
a dream.
It's a dream. Like
It's a dream.
people think I'm.
I know that's
crazy.
Kepa Tenkong's thing,
Yeah.
but it is still true. It is a
Yeah.
dream, and we can change it also, is what he
Yeah.
always says. I'm going to go back to that too.
Okay.
And a lot of it is how we perceive it. And so if we continue to do our meditation, disengage from that suffering, understanding its impermanence and understanding samsara, and continue to do our practice legitimately and effectively, we're not going to attach ourselves to any of those labels. It's just another hook in some kind of way. So if when you say, well, is it okay to identify with that diagnosis? It's a word and it means something, but you are not having the experience of that diagnosis the same way as someone else might.
Right. I don't want to identify as it, but it's sort of a semantic sort of thing. Like validate the fact that I'm not crazy, that I am having these symptoms and there is a cause, which is, like
being born.
or
being born is the cause.
Yeah. Or like, I fell down.
Yeah, there are causes and conditions for that.
Okay.
But embrace them, use them as your prayer. I embrace this, and I understand many people are suffering. May I take, this is Tong Lin.
The little card that Mama Kathy passes.
Yeah, that's the practice. Use it as your prayer. Use it as a vehicle for enlightenment.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, how you doing? Do you need a break? Are you all right? Continue? Okay. All right, so we haven't gotten very far in this whole process, but we need to make this longer. Okay, so I do want to talk a little bit about lineage because it is so important for us to shed some light on this importance of lineage of teaching from master to student. So there, as you know, there are 4 principal schools of Tibetan Buddhism: the Nyingma, Kagyu, Gelug, Sakya. And our Kagyu school traces its lineage from the primordial Buddha Vajradhara. Where's Vajradhara? Oh, there's Vajradhara. I was looking for the yeah. So Vajradhara, who's the center of our lineage tree. From Vajradhara to the Indian masters, Mahasiddha, Tilopa and his student Naropa, and the stories of the lives of these great lineage masters are remarkable and inspirational. And again, I will encourage you to read some of these stories about our lineage and our lineage masters. And the practice is done in retreat, come from the 6 yogas of Naropa, which I had the good fortune to do during my 3-year training. And these are disciplines are practiced under the direct guidance, of qualified masters. And so other masters of the lineage include Marpa, Milarepa, Gampopa, down to his students, the first Karmapa, Duchen. Each of these masters were taught by their teachers and continued our Ma Buddha lineage to the current Karmapa, the current head of the Kagyu lineage, as you know, our Karmapa Origin Trinley Dorje, the 17th reincarnation, whose birthday has been celebrated on June 26th, but now he's celebrating it on June 30th, which is the first day of the 5th month of the Tibetan calendar. So it is kind of a movable feast. But we have historically, it's coming up June 26th, tomorrow, actually. So happy birthday, Karmapa. It'll be 38, I think. Yes, 38. So we have over 9 years of Kagyu tradition being identified as reincarnations of previous teachers are known as tulkus. And we have these masters, often called Rinpoche, the precious teacher. And there have been many recognized tulkus in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. And the first Karmapa, Duchen Chenpa, was the first tulku identified in that tradition. And the previous 16th Karmapa, a Tibetan, was one of the first to come to the United States to disseminate the teachings of the Buddha to Westerners. And he sent many teachers to the West to teach Dharma. And one of those was our precious teacher, Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, who founded this center and our center in Gainesville, and who was the retreat master of my retreat. And there's another retreat that's beginning very soon, I think, maybe September. The 16th Karmapa died, as you may know, passed away in Chicago in 1981. And the current Karmapa was discovered several years later, the child of a nomadic family in Tibet. And the former Karmapa, the 16th Karmapa, left a letter, which they have all done with their senior teacher. So they leave a letter with the names of the parents, the name of the place, and all of the auspicious circumstances that would be needed to go and find him and restore him to his position as the head of the Karmakaju tradition. And that's what happened. The 16th Karmapa, the previous Karmapa, left a letter with Taisita Rinpoche, who found the letter sometimes by accident, actually. He was given it and he forgot about it, actually. It was in a large brooch. And when he opened it up, and here it is. This is the information. And in fact, he was recovered in Tibet and brought, and we know him now. He's celebrating his 38th birthday tomorrow. So this, as it is said, this letter described the name and place of next birth, where he could be found, and the name of his parents, other details, so the search party could identify him. So again, the lives of these masters are called namtars. They're like biographies, spiritual biographies. And I will leave you to explore more about those biographies of the realized masters, which again are inspirational and highly recommended. And I certainly owe my teacher, Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, an enormous debt of gratitude that I can never repay. I received my initial refuge vows from Khenpo Rinpoche, and as a result of his kindness and compassion, I was able to complete the 3-year retreat and traveled with him to China, India, Nepal, Tibet. Received teachings and the Gelong vows of a bhikshu from Khenchen Trungpa Rinpoche, and the Bodhisattva vows from Origin Trinley Dorje, the 17th Karmapa. So Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche was one of the greatest living masters of our Tibetan Buddhist tradition. And he received most of his training and education in Tibet before the communist Chinese invasion, and was highly accomplished in meditation, philosophy, monastic arts. And I think all of you know about Khenpo Rinpoche. He founded the center. Yeah.
And there is a namtar for him by his nephew.
Yes.
That is considered a namtar.
Yes, it is.
So there's-
So this teaching has come from Khenpo Rinpoche's teaching and Trungpa Rinpoche. Those are my main gurus, my main teachers, Kenshin Trungpa Rinpoche. So I received my Gelong and the intermediate Getzel vows from Trungpa Rinpoche at Namo Buddha Monastery in Nepal. Trungpa Rinpoche was one of the tutors of the 17th Karmapa and one of the foremost currently living masters of Tibetan Buddhism. Any other questions?
Well, you mentioned the importance of lineage and you talked about the lineage of the Kamakasu. You also mentioned earlier in the talk that we're in the sort of the early stages of the fortunate year of 1002 Buddhas, which I believe shared that Shakyamuni is the fourth. We know that His Holiness is an enlightened being, but when will he play the part of an historical Buddha who regenerates the teachings? Will he be number 5, number 6?
Number 6.
Number 6.
Maitreya will be the next. And Karmapa will be the next.
Lama, I've heard the Maitreya Buddha mantra said, how does that particular practice or mantra play within our lineage? Is that something that's done as an advanced practice, or what's the what in particular if one wants to do that practice, or what's the practice done for?
Anytime you make a connection. So for us, to be working for His Holiness the Karmapa, as we are, the 16th Joan Karmapa, we have a bond, we have a connection with him. And to be sure, we can aspire when he is Buddha, we will be in his retinue. It's the same thing with Maitreya. Taisitu is considered a manifestation of Maitreya. And so taking teachings from him, anytime you connect yourself with Maitreya, if you have that aspiration or you have that kind of heartfelt impulse and attraction, then we follow that. But there are so many different practices, we can't do them all. But those ones that we resonate with the strongest, we should practice. Yeah.
Does His Holiness, I'm sure he has a longer name than we say.
Oh, he's got,
So,
yes, he does.
so Tukul's in there somewhere, right?
Well, I don't know if Tulku's necessarily in there, but he is a Tulku, but yeah.
I was curious.
Yeah, I don't, when I've seen it, I don't know the actual word Tulku's in there, but yeah. What else? Anything else on your mind?
So as for like the books, you can just get the books from like any kind of store, or
Which books are those?
the books you're talking about that has it.
Namse Banzo. Yeah, the KTD bookstore has those.
The KTD bookstore.
Yeah, KTD bookstore.
KTD.com.
Kagyu.
You can find it from there. Yeah. There's a link from the kagyu.org.
Yeah,
And
Kagyu.org.
we do have some
Okay.
of the titles in our bookstore here.
We do have the title for Tempo Rinpoche, Young Rita of Eloquence. We have that here.
Yeah. And you can also, you know, if you know the name of the book, you can look it up online, but it's also good to support the here in KTD, the publications and the store there. Not all of the books are publicated by KTD, but a lot of them are. So it's good to get them from there. But you can also, I mean, I'm gonna say you can go to Chamberlain's, and every once in a while there's a copy of a book, a Karmakachi book. And I try to pick them up and bring them here, but yeah.
Yeah, you should, if you haven't been to the site, kagyu.org, You can see the teachers who are there. You can see what's going on there, and you'll have access to the bookstore, and they will have all of the books that we're talking about. All right, so we've been talking about the importance of practice. So, establishing a daily practice, hopefully you all do have a daily practice, and we'll get the result from that. So just as we probably don't have to talk so much, but we may have other people who are not so online who may be new. So we should talk a little bit in the time that we have about basic meditation to tame our mind. We said that taming our mind was an important aspect of this, cultivating virtue, avoid wrongdoing, and taming our mind. So to begin meditation, we'll give the instruction for meditation. So to begin meditation, first sit in the posture described, by the first instruction is really to sit comfortably. Not everyone sits comfortably in a cross-legged position. If you need to be in a chair, that's fine. But there is a reason why we always see the Buddha in this posture. When we talk about energy and qi and the movement of energy, we want to definitely have the spine straight so that the central channel is straight. All of the energies are in harmony. So it's as if you're being suspended from the heavens by a string. Chin is slightly tucked in, hands are relaxed on the knees, can be like that, tongues resting on the roof of the mouth. So to begin by taking a nice, slow, relaxed, natural breaths. On the in-breath, imagine the air entering through your nostrils and filling your body all the way down to the level of your navel. And on the out-breath, imagine the air going out the nostrils down to the level of the floor. You can almost see it like a smoke. You can imagine the air as it comes out of the nostrils. And so after this initial slow breath, you can stop imagining the breath in that way and just be aware of the sensation in the nostrils. So be aware of the breathing warm air out and cool air in at the tip of the nostrils. Then just be aware of your breathing in and out. When breathing in, be aware of breathing in. When breathing out, be aware of breathing out. Breathe normally. Don't try to make the breath any longer or shorter. Just let it be natural and uncontrived. Inevitably, thoughts are going to come to mind now and then, taking you away from your awareness of your breath. Noticing that distraction is the first benefit you'll experience in meditation, the busyness of the mind. This busyness of the mind is something that's been going on all of your life. And when you notice that you are involved with a thought, any thought, just recognize it as thinking and go back to the sensation of the breath or the rise and fall of the diaphragm, but bring your awareness back to the breath again. Without judgment. There's no judgment about the thoughts, no judgment or blaming yourself if your attention slips. This is actually an important part of the development of the meditative practice. You see when the mind begins to, you lose attention. So we just continue to meditate. Thoughts come and go. We see them like clouds in that spacious sky, having their moment of arising and dissolving back into emptiness. And we return again and again to the cessation of breathing. This gives the mind something to focus on instead of entertaining distracting thoughts. In the beginning, if you're just starting, sometimes it's helpful to count the out breath. So you breathe in naturally and exhale naturally. Count 1. Inhale, exhale 2, to the count of 21. And you can repeat that for as many times as long as you like to remain in your meditative state. So if you're just beginning a meditation practice, just doing 21 breaths like that for 21 days can establish a new habit of meditation. But it has to be every day, without fail. And then as you progress, you can let the counting go and just follow the breath. When thoughts come to mind again, there's no judgment. You're not trying to push thoughts away. You recognize the thought is thinking. You can label it thinking if you like, and just return to the focus of your breath, which is going to be breathing in and breathing out, not following distracting thoughts. The mind is still sharp. You're not dull, or you're not in a trance or mental numbness. The mind is awake, it's aware. You're aware of what's going on around you. You can hear sounds, but you're not going to follow them. The eyes are unfocused. You can look at an imaginary spot about 2 feet in front, 45-degree angle down. You can follow the breath out. And at the end of the exhale, notice a brief pause or gap at the bottom of the exhale before taking the next breath in. You can enjoy the gap of no breath between breaths. But remain mindful and vigilant, particularly in the beginning. In the beginning, we monitor ourselves so as not to be excessively relaxed or excessively rigid. This balance of correct effort could be compared to, it's often compared to the strings on a guitar or a lute. Not too tight, not too loose. If strings are too loose, then and not stretched enough, there'll be no sound. But if stretched too tight, there's the possibility it'll just snap and break. So we have to be just right, not too loose, not too tight. And in the beginning, try not to entertain any particular expectation about meditation or its many benefits. Do not think that, oh, you'll acquire great abilities and powers in great cities. Just do the practice without hope and fear and see what happens. Just rest naturally in this moment. Maintain an open and joyful mind. We practice with joyful perseverance and gratitude for our great good fortune. So it's important to meditate regularly, every day, even if only for a few minutes. We can begin with mindfully taking 21 breaths as our initial step in establishing our daily practice. And if we do this for 21 days, we'll begin the process of constructing a new lifelong habit of meditation. So this is shamatha meditation. And shamatha is a Sanskrit word that usually is translated as tranquility. Shanay is the Tibetan word referring to this type of meditation. And meditation, as we've been mentioning, is an important part of this tradition. Shamatha is a form of meditation that the Buddha taught to establish basic tranquility and calmness of mind. This is essential to progress along the path. Understanding the meditation is the process of directly experiencing the nature of your own mind. Through calming the mind, we can experience a state of peace and tranquility. This is a necessary prerequisite leading to mindfulness, insight, and wisdom. It affects our experience and how we see the world. As one deepens their meditative experience, the mind grows calm and patient, relaxed, and at ease, able to see more clearly. This does require practice. As we say, we don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. In that way, we can see our happiness as a choice we make. I often use the analogy that training our mind is very much like training a puppy. You say, stay. Does the puppy listen? If the puppy's like my puppy, she immediately runs off at the slightest distraction. And you sit the puppy down and go through this training over and over again. And training the mind of the puppy, we have to start over and over again. Getting mad at yourself or the puppy does not help. It is not a matter of force or coercion. You just begin again and tame the mind with patience and perseverance. I think we're going to have part 2 of this presentation another time. We did say from 10 to 12, and we're rapidly approaching that. But it is important that you establish a daily practice. And so first, select a location for your practice. As in real estate, it says the 3 most important things to consider are location, location, location. And it is true in establishing your meditation practice. A corner in your bedroom is fine, or any other quiet spot in your home that is clean and quiet and gives you a natural feeling of peace will work. You may try a couple of spots before finding the ideal right one. You just need enough room for a cushion, sabotan and safu. You may want a little table, doesn't have to be a big deal, something to put a flower on, or incense, or a particular picture of your teacher, or something that evokes faith and devotion. Create a space that makes you happy. Space that makes you happy is good feng shui. So, select a time for your practice. And people often ask, when is the best time to practice? The best time to practice is when you practice. Doesn't matter, morning, noon, or night. It has to be fit your routine and lifestyle. So in the beginning, we create the habit of sitting, and it is so it can be regular and consistent for, as we were saying, 21 days, certainly, but for the rest of your life. You can create this new and lasting habit. And then it's good to have, you open your shrine. It doesn't have to be elaborate like this one, but to have a shrine in your room can be nice. You make the offering of a candle or incense, and then you take your seat. There are 7 points of arochana that we talked about some of those. Take a comfortable seat on a cushion or on a chair. If you're sitting on the chair, a little bit forward in the chair so you can sit upright and not leaning back. You don't want to lean forward or back or side. You want to keep as straight as you can. And hands can be relaxed in the lap. Often you'll see right hand and left, thumbs gently touching below the navel. Or as Kimber Bichet mentioned, the thumb in the ring joint, finger, gentle fist, and just relaxed on the knees, or just palms down on the knees, whatever's comfortable for you.
Can that be as close to your knees as possible?
As close to your knees.
Because when I do it, it's more on my
That's fine.
thigh.
That's
Okay, it's a shorter arms.
Yeah. Anatomies differ. Yeah. Yes, if it's
I
uncomfortable.
go like this, I'm too.
Yeah, no, you
Yeah.
don't want to do that. You want to be first instruction is sit comfortably, particularly for shamatha. But awake and aware. You're straight, you're not sleeping. And so you're aware of your body, and you may need to do micro adjustments, when you start to fade, you're aware of that as well, and become upright again.
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't, the channels. I'm getting a little bit.
No, you can be palms down,
I just meant like.
Yeah.
The
It doesn't have to, there's nothing magical about having
Okay.
them on the knees.
Okay.
More comfortable, as you're saying, your anatomy may be such that, to do that would throw you out of balance. So yes, so you established your sitting posture, and you established your location, and then we want to cultivate bodhicitta. So you know that your practice that you're doing is for the benefit of all beings. Twofold benefit. It is for yourself. We do want to attain enlightenment, but we want to attain enlightenment to be a benefit to beings. We all want to be happy, as we mentioned, and in order to do so, we want to benefit all beings, and they are the same as we are. They want to be happy. So we dedicate the merit at the end of our practice to the benefit of all beings and their ultimate enlightenment. So we start with that aspiration of generating bodhicitta, just like we did today before we started the practice. And you can do that in your own words. May, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Noble Sangha for the benefit of all beings. You can do through prostrations before you begin, before you take your seat. And then when we complete it, we dedicate the merit. Any questions about any of that? Yes.
And that you can also dedicate the merit once you're done with any type of good act.
It is your intention, to benefit beings, and there are formal ones that you can use, but it needs to be heartfelt. Sometimes we use the kind of a canned kind of prayer, but our heart is not in it. Better to say something that is maybe not as eloquent, but from your heart.
And you can dedicate other people's merit as long as it's heartfelt. I rejoice in the merit this blank person, has done to help others.
Sure,
And
absolutely.
as long as it's heartfelt.
Yeah, you have lots of flexibility and possibilities. With our practice, yes. So, we make offerings. If you have an image of the Buddha, that would be great. And so when we make our offerings, there are the 7 offering bowls there. Generally, we see a bowl of water for drinking, a foot wadding for washing. We have incense, we have light, we have various things. You can do that as well, just in your imagery. You don't even have to have it in a physical form, but all the flowers in the world, in the universe, in the multiverse, throughout the expanse of space, all the flowers everywhere I offer. And you're only, again, limited by your own imagination. It can be light, it can be food, it can be flowers, it can be incense, mountains of incense. You can be creative at this point. So to summarize, that the aspects of shamatha are have the correct posture, firstly, and then hold the mind on the breath, and then cut the stream of thoughts and mental chatter. Eliminate dullness and agitation. There are 2 faults in meditation. One is over-agitation, and the mind is too stimulated. And so we need to sink the energy down. And there is a way you can do that by imagining a black lotus, inverted lotus, and a black pearl that comes down to below the navel. That will sink the energy down. Sometimes we are torpid, or we're dull, and torpor sets in, and we're just kind of sleepy. A white lotus with a white pearl ascends up to the top, and it's like a bright light that just brilliantly shines on you and wakes you up. We want the energy to come up. It's sinking when you get in that dull position. So those 2 obstacles of dullness or agitation, those are the remedies for those things.
That's how you said popsicles.
Yeah. Okay, it looks like there's things going on. We can stop here, and we can do our dedication of merit. If there is any particular, any other questions? No one's monitoring the,
Mike came over to check.
Oh,
He said
okay.
no.
all right. So we'll dedicate the merit. Sonam di tam che sikani tobne ne pedranam banjene gegana chibala chukayi si peso le droa sho. By this merit, may all attain omniscience. May it defeat the enemy wrongdoing, and from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. May I free all beings. May I free all beings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.